Hello, Internet! Gino, that Pinguino Grieco, here again with another episode of Deep Listen. This is part 2 of our episode on Final Fantasy Crystal Chronicles. So if you care about spoilers, listen to part 1, stop listening to me right now, and then play Crystal Chronicles and then come back. So I am joined, as always, by Billy, fusing with his Moogle, Rothert.
Sometimes it is lonely, guys, you know. You gotta just...
Especially single player, yeah.
Single player. Gotta grab that fluffy Moogle and just make some Faraga.
Oh no! I am also joined by PhD candidate. Are you officially a PhD candidate yet?
I'll be finished with the Masters at the end of this semester.
So soon to be PhD candidate. Peter, fusing is the most fun part of multiplayer games. Busby.
Across all platforms, all games, all systems, fusing is where it's at. Fun fact for this half of the podcast, do you know sourdough is presumably the earliest type of leavened bread? Dates back to 4000 BC in the Egyptians.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's why it's so delicious. It's a goddamn classic.
You're tasting the history.
It stood the test of time. Other breads have come and gone.
Not
Johnny
sourdough.
come lately breads, but not sourdough. So today we get to go into the depth of Final Fantasy Crystal Chronicles.
The surprising depth.
The surprising depth. So I actually texted you earlier in the week, Pete,
You
to
did.
mention that I was kind of taken aback
Yes.
by how much there was in Crystal Chronicles. Now,
I was also surprised. Not obviously by your enthusiasm for a Final Fantasy game, that much was a given, but there was a decent amount of depth to this one.
to be fair, I don't like all Final Fantasy games. I like 8 and 9 and 10 a disproportionate amount. I really enjoy 5. 6 is okay. I don't really like 4 or 3 or 2 or 1 or 12
7.
or 13. 7 I like, but not like I don't like love it. So I like 10 too because it's madness. But I don't have like a blanket.
Oh, Dirge of Cerberus, Gino.
I played that. That game's weird.
It was so good. That game
was
was
so something.
fine.
Dirge is, that doesn't make any sense. How
It
does
doesn't.
Cerberus
Alright,
have a Dirge?
There's a 3-barreled pistol shotgun, and a guy named Vincent just runs around in a red cape. That's all you need to know. Like, we're good.
Okay.
He's emo. He's basically the guy from The Cure, except he's also can turn into a monster, which I guess is not that different. I don't know. He's
Vincent
kind of Johnny
Valentine,
Depp.
I think, is the most well-developed character in that story. Let's just get real for a second.
That's not a high bar, but he's basically Edward. He looks like Edward Scissorhands.
No, what? That's
Does
a
he
bad
have
comparison.
Scissorhands? Because that's like
No.
his defining feature.
He's got a gauntlet.
He's a
got, like, a
vampire
metal
with a
gauntlet.
red cape. He can turn into like smoke and like apparate and stuff. But you know,
His
he's.
hair looks like Edward Scissorhands' hair.
I think you're off the
Does he have
mark.
scissors for
He's
hands?
more of a Marilyn Manson than an Edward Scissorhands.
I feel like they're
That's
not
not-
that distinct.
that's not a
pretty
huge
close. That's a pretty narrow spectrum you just laid out for us, Billy.
I did.
Okay, so we've
Anyway,
gone
Crystal
from
Chronicles.
the guy from The Cure, Edward Scissorhands, and Marilyn Manson. These are all the same genre of people. Okay, so back to Crystal Chronicles. The reason why I found it so interesting is that this game, from the get-go, it makes your town and your family important in a way that most role-playing games don't. Most role-playing games, if they are focused on a young protagonist or group of protagonists, usually they are orphaned or their parents are downplayed to a huge extent as you are going on an adventure. It is largely an escape from the world of parenthood and the world of familial responsibilities, and kind of it uses that as an analogy for growing up. You usually don't see someone growing up within the context of a family or with relationships and that being a really significant part of the game. And so I found that every year returning home to my family and getting letters from my family throughout the year and hearing that they are developing without me and that they miss me and that they're wondering how I'm growing up without them and that it seems like there is this connection there in a way that most role-playing games kind of opt out of. And so I found that really compelling. And I also found it compelling that none of the people in this game are soldiers or at least within your town, I should say. There are some caravans that seem to have soldiers by trade. But for the most part, no one in your town is a soldier. They're people who are kind of pressed into being caravaneers because of need.
That's what one question I have now, and you just bring this up, Gino, is sort of what the game probably doesn't tell us this, but what sort of the socioeconomic position of the caravanners within society is. Is this is the case where sort of in certain poverty-stricken segments of the population, sometimes they have to leave home and go out in search of work in this way. Does caravanning become an economic opportunity in the same sort of way?
I think that from what they make you see from your town, at least, I don't know about every town, but the town that you name, it's named Tippa by default. In Tippa, it seems like when people come of age, they are made to go on caravans because they are the able-bodied. They are the people of the right age to go caravanning.
So almost like a draft then?
Yes.
Okay.
So people from all walks of life are brought into the caravan, and that is the place where they are kind of bound. So you could be a farmer, and you have to go in the caravan when you're old enough. You could be a merchant, a blacksmith, a tailor, an alchemist, like all of these different jobs that sound fanciful and sound like they would make up all kind of the castes beyond, I guess, monarch or leadership caste, are forced to go into this profession. And I found that to be a pretty compelling metaphor, or at least a compelling setup. So what did you guys think about like the familial relationships and that sort of stuff?
Well, it definitely is sort of contrary to the typical, as you established. Link's an orphan. You mentioned Chrono Trigger. I don't know if I could say whether or not Chrono has a family.
He has a mom, but you leave her in the first. You talk to her once, and then you basically leave her for the rest of the game.
Yeah, I mean,
In
I can't even
Pokemon,
recall it.
you do the same thing. You start in your house, and then you have like 2 interactions with your mom, and then you leave.
I
The
think
protagonist from Final Fantasy 4, at
7,
least
no
4,
parents.
4 to I don't know where it stops. All of the protagonists, or at least the main protagonists, are orphans.
10
this
definitely
goes
has
back-
daddy issues.
Yeah. This goes back to that distinction we drew earlier between sort of weight of the world being on your shoulders, in which case, fate of your family doesn't really matter. To this case, it's the weight of the town. So the town has to assume that sort of greater emotional resonance that, when it's world saving, you don't need to establish that because it's already inherently compelling, right? It's saving the whole world. But if you didn't care about anybody in your town, well, hell, just let them die then.
Exactly. And when you get to the level Taida, which I think is not coincidentally named. Mm-hmm. So Tippa is the default town. Taida is a level you go to later on. And it is a town whose caravan never came back. And so this game employs narration, direct narration by a lovely, I guess, Scottish or
Some
Irish.
kind of Celtic female voice.
Irish.
There's like
lady
an inscription at the beginning of every level.
Yeah. And she sets the stage for what is this level? Where is it? What is its place in history? What is its environment? What kind of monsters can you see here sometimes? And she seems to be a caravaneer who has gone off the road or has traveled basically to all of these locations, who has basically lived your experience and is relaying some stuff to you. And for Taida, what she says is that this town, was so confident in their caravan that even though time was running out, they never left. They could have left. They could have saved themselves. But till their last moments, they were sure that their caravan would come in time. And it didn't. And so it's this kind of abandoned ghost town full of skeletons and ruined homes covered in cobwebs and giant worms. It's actually like the final boss is a house that comes alive.
Yep.
And so it kind of sets in stark relief, and that's a level that you have to see in your second year. And it sets the stage for what are the consequences of your actions? What are you doing here? And I found that was really, it's something that most games don't do. Like, you usually see dungeons and they're cool places. They're not have a history in that way.
It shows you what the lose state is. If you fail in your mission, this is what happens to your family and your hometown.
Yes. And what did you guys think of the narration in other spots? What was your favorite narration?
Perfect.
My favorite, just because it was also my favorite level, my favorite narration was with the manor.
Yes.
This is one point where it's sort of, what do I want to say? The narration doesn't really get into a really elegant history in this one. It's basically just like, dude was hungry, his wife got pissed because she was hungry, big fight happened. So that was nice because it's just sort of a lighthearted break from the rest of them. But overall, the narration really did sort of set that tone in the way you're describing.
Yeah, and I almost felt later on in the game, it became more and more foreboding and a little bit less world setting or narratively important. And I felt it really detracted from my experience. And I guess it makes sense because some of the later levels are just dungeons. They are places that people have not been. And so there's not really much for an adventurer to say, whereas some of the earlier levels are like, this used to be a mine that when the Lilties ruled the world was the source of their power, or this is a little, river where people used to walk when people, before monsters and miasma came, but now
everything was poison.
Yeah. So, Billy, what was your
favorite inscription? I'm thinking of one. I'm trying to. Okay, so my favorite level was Veolus Luce.
Yeah.
That was just a really well-made level. I thought it had the best music. I thought it had.
Which music was great throughout this whole game.
Oh, yeah, music was really good throughout this whole game. But I think my favorite inscription was for Celipation Cave, about the birth of wind.
Yes.
I think that was like kind of like a profound inscription. It basically describes how like wind is born from this cave, and like the wind travels across the land, collects memories, basically. Like this whole game is about memories and stuff, and then it returns to the cave, and that's where it stops being wind and like gives birth to a new wind. It sounds, now that I say it sounds kind of cheesy, but the way she articulated it was just way better than I did.
Yeah, and I it's hard to pick because each of the levels, like I really love Veolus Luce, how it describes a moment of peace when all these different races used to be working together, or what was that Egyptian giant pyramid or Aztec giant pyramid?
It was like a city in which all four of the races used to coexist.
Rabbena Terra.
Yeah,
Rabbena Terra was one where it described again a place when all the races were at peace. I guess the what was the bog?
It's called, hang on, Conel Karach.
Conel Karach?
I think it was. I might not be pronouncing that right, but
a lot of weird names in this game.
Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of weird names with funny pronunciations, which is fine. It just makes it hard to talk about. Let me see if I can find, because I've got the guidebook still.
While you're looking, I just want to bring up that line. Oh, you got it?
Yeah, Conel Karach. Yeah, you were right. I liked it just because it described how the Selkies, they're a nomadic race, and how I guess they were driven out of their home by the miasma and the monsters, and so they kept traveling west, hoping to find a home. And so they traveled through this bog, laid down all these bridges, hoping that when they got westward, they would find a permanent place to stay. And when they got there, it was just a huge, empty expanse, like a wasteland. And so
I thought it was an ocean.
There's a wasteland and there's an ocean.
Okay.
So basically they did all of this work to try and pass through this bog, and ultimately it led to nothing.
Because if you go way off the beaten path in that level, you can actually get to the furthest bridge that they laid down and said, hey, like this is an ocean here. Like we can't go any further.
And you can actually complete some of those bridges.
Yeah.
By interacting at the Demon's Court, which is cool. What were you saying, Pete?
Yeah, the nice part about the mind level too, which you brought up, is how like the Liliths ruled the world at one point, was sort of the historical veracity of the situation, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like if you think about this happened in history with the transition from bronze weaponry to iron weaponry, it just let people lay waste to sort of entire civilizations, take over, and then once that iron runs out, they're pretty much finished. Just a nice little historical touch there. It was like, all right, like granted there are some fantastical elements here, but in theory, it makes sense.
Yeah, and the Lilties. It's interesting that each of the different cultures have their own town. The Lilties have two, though. I think they're the only town that has two. There's Mars Pass and Alfenzia.
Pass, yeah.
So, there's a lot of
Mars
cool
Pass
history.
a Lilty town?
There's mixed race there.
Yeah.
But
Primarily Lilty?
the Caravaneers are all Lilties.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, that makes sense. It's very much a crossroads kind of town.
Yeah, and Alphataria is the main Lilty kind of monarchy.
Mm-hmm.
They're
seat of the
strong.
monarchy. Yep. And there's even there's strife within the Lilties. Like the people of Mars Pass are looked down upon by the Alfalfians because
Alphatarians.
Alphatarians because they're a giant city with the seat of the monarchy, whereas Mars Pass is kind of seen as a backwater town.
Yeah. And there's even, among the Selkies, not among the Selkies, but if you go to the Selkie town as a non-Selkie, all the townspeople rob you while you talk about them, or talk to them.
Yep.
There is, some obvious interracial strife going on here, which makes sense with a history of conquest like that.
Yep, and the Clavets are all super friendly and docile for the most part, with their ridiculous hats. Yeah, it's amazing for how little exposition, or I guess it is exposition.
Exposition.
Yeah, it's expedition, the narration and the diary, but the game is not heavy on dialogue, I should say. For a game that de-emphasizes dialogue in the way it does, to still be so strong in terms of telling a cohesive story. I have a much better picture of how this world formed than I do most other role-playing games that I spend 4 times as long with. Sure. Usually it's just, the world was like this.
It's always been like this. Stop asking questions.
Or there's an ancient race. This ancient race existed, and they did some shit. They're called the Ancients.
Now we're getting into Halo territory.
No, I mean, Final Fantasy VII, that's basically the story.
That is?
Yeah. The Ancients exist, and they had magic, and they came from the Promised Land. But now Sephiroth is coming. Ugh.
All right. So the other one point I wanted, this is a different topic. We're going to shift.
Go right ahead.
Here. So, do you guys remember that episode of Futurama?
Yes.
Yes. I don't need to continue. I will for the sake of our listeners. Do you remember that episode of Futurama where global warming is a really serious problem, so they keep dropping in bigger and bigger ice cubes into the ocean?
Yes.
Yes. That's what this game made me think about it. And I'm seeing here an allegory, specifically, and what was this, 2004, did we say? It might even be a little
2003, 2004.
Oppression allegory, then. I'm seeing a present allegory for global warming, right? Because all the towns, they're not trying to fix the underlying problem. What is the cause of this miasma? They're just taking these sort of stopgap measures. Right, every 3 years we need to get a little myrrh. Or every year we need 3 drops of myrrh. That's going to carry us through. We'll be fine. Let's not worry about where it comes from, what's causing it, for the most part, right? So I'm seeing a pretty strong environmental message here about the importance of sort of pursuing the underlying causes of these problems instead of relying on these, good enough type solutions.
Yeah, and I think that also relevant to that is how much of the stratification of the society in Crystal Chronicles is caused by the presence of the miasma. Like, you have this picture of what society was before the miasma showed up, and that it was this giant contiguous kingdom where these 4 races basically intermeshed. They each had their own strengths and weaknesses, but they interacted in meaningful ways. But now that the miasma has come, there is only the interaction of the Caravaneers, really. People aren't immigrating. People are basically stagnant. They are isolated. And so Caravaneers are pretty much the only cultural exchange, other than a few merchants here or there. And so even though people are able to subsist by just getting cups of myrrh every year, they're not growing and they're not progressing in the way that they were before this entire calamity happened. So even though they're subsisting, it's slowly starving them culturally. And they don't even realize
Strong point. How does this is something that sort of plagued me. How does the ferry survive?
It seems like
It has a crystal on it.
It does? I know. I was looking at the boat over and over and I could never locate it.
Yeah, some people have crystals, it seems like, on their person.
Yeah.
Like they figured out how to have a portable crystal. And then
The thieves, for example, they have
Yes.
portable crystal.
Okay.
And then some of the other big edifices have
It's
crystals
apparently very
embedded in
rare
them.
to be able to have a crystal that can sustain itself. Well, like your chalice can sustain itself, so anyone who has something similar to it is fine, right? It's reasonable to assume that the chalices are of value, that they're pretty rare,
Yes.
but other characters are revealed to have some sort of like miniature pocket version, and even in the game itself, you can craft an item that gives you resistance to miasma, not immunity, but increased resistance.
Okay.
Boo.
It basically makes you not care if you're outside the miasma. You take like 1 tick of damage every 5 or 10 seconds. Like it's a negligible amount. You can be outside of miasma and not care. You'll still take a little bit of damage, but because that item is craftable in game, it sort of makes it more believable that it can be done.
Yeah.
So I'm fine
Yeah,
with it.
actually, if you go to Shella, the Uke hometown, there's a Selkie there who is researching.
Yeah,
a
portable crystals. But that's still sort of just like delaying the problem
Exactly.
Yes.
and just making you deal with the problem in an easier way as opposed to solving it.
Yeah, it actually fits into the allegory really nicely because one is sort of it's the faith in technology argument again, right?
Right.
Well, we don't need to worry about global warming because eventually we'll develop some technological solution that'll solve all this.
Or create little micro environments for all of us to live in like we have been doing in the past.
Yeah,
You know?
and that's basically the solution. Isn't to get rid of the problem that's destroying everyone. It's creating so many micro environments that the people we care about aren't impacted.
And now, in the story of the game, we get information that a couple people have tried to solve the miasma problem. They've all failed.
Yeah.
And there's only sort of rumors and legends of what happened to them after they tried and failed.
Yeah,
Right?
and so we meet the two
There's
characters.
2 people
who
in
are closest.
particular.
Yep. So you want to talk about them, Billy?
Sure. One of them is Hurdy, I believe.
Or Gertie, depending
Gertie?
on how you see him.
Gertie?
They're the same person,
They're the well.
presumably.
Are they?
There's no hard evidence for it.
Wait,
Gertie is the one you meet on the road.
Yeah.
Hurdy is the one who you meet in town, who looks identical except has blonde hair and white clothes instead of red and red.
yeah, I just forget which one is which, but it's
You're
one of those
thinking
people.
Gertie. Gertie's the one who lost his memories.
Sure. So that person is one person who I believe tried to solve the miasma crisis.
Yep.
And there was another character, I believe the name was Leon.
Yeah, the Black Knight.
And yeah, Leon, but we only know him as the Black Knight for almost the entirety of the game.
Huge badass. Great
Yeah,
armor.
huge badass. Just makes me look like not a badass in this game, even though I'm still a badass in this game. But compared to the Black Knight,
You're nothing.
I mean, I guess I did beat the final boss and he didn't. But anyway, that's all.
That's
all
neither
that
here
aside.
nor there.
Yeah, all that aside. We meet 2 characters who tried to solve it basically in 2 different ways. One of them tried to solve the miasma crisis. I mean, I guess they both got to the same destination, but they had different motives. One of them said, "I'm just going to destroy whatever is destroying my family. I'm going to hurt this thing in the way that it hurt me, and I will do this for the glory of my nation and my family." And that's the Black Knight. And when that shit did not fly, it destroyed his life. Right?
Yeah.
Gertie, whatever.
the
That
hurdy-gurdy man.
that guy, I think, was seeking more of like a diplomatic, like reasonable, like articulate solution involving poetry or intellect, whatever. And when he failed, it made him kind of dim-witted and forgetful, and he had no memories anymore.
It made him jaded.
It made him shifty. He's a con man now.
Kind of shifty, you know? So whatever this person was trying to accomplish, it was basically turned upside down on them. Gertie lost all of his family and basically was just a roaming
thief for the
most part, or con man. And the Black Knight had like a shattered home and family, and eventually actually his son kills him.
Yeah.
Which is pretty heavy. His son knows that the quote unquote the Black Knight killed my father, when in fact Black Knight was his father, who was just basically mentally destroyed. So like that just gets really heavy.
If you notice, the Black Knight's son, no arms. What's he holding that spear with?
A spear.
That's a great question.
What's he holding it with?
The power of memory or something?
Yes, probably.
Yeah, something suitably dumb like that.
I thought that the moment when you see Gertie dressed up because you can meet Hurdy in Mars Pass. He's there preaching.
Are we sure it's the same person?
So when you meet Gertie the fourth time, he's dressed up like Hurdy, and he says, "Oh, these are my brother's clothes. My brother leaves them sometimes, and I dress up like him. And so I'm wearing this outfit instead. It's a great disguise."
Yeah.
But then when he leaves, he's like, I've never met my brother. If you meet him, let me know.
I remember this
and
interaction.
Like,
yeah.
Okay, so you don't know that was you.
I definitely remember
because your
that
memories are
conversation
gone. You can't remember that you used to be this person. So he either has a split personality or he just doesn't remember who he used to be.
And
probably the latter, or both.
Because Hurdy, as you go back to your town year after year, when you leave, the elders of your town will tell you about Hurdy.
Yeah, that's who they're talking about, right?
Yeah, how he wanted to solve the miasma, and they'll basically tell you the stuff that Gertie will tell you over time as well. It's really cool that those two characters, they allowed them to have tragic ends. Like, you would have thought that some of them would have some redemption, considering how close they got to saving the world.
Yeah.
But no. Gertie just kind of vanishes after giving you all the information you need, and
Black Knight dies.
Black Knight gets stabbed by his own son.
Own kid.
Yeah. So what did you think about the traveling caravans? Like, the people you meet? Any cool interactions that you enjoyed?
Yeah, I liked the thieves. They were good for a laugh.
Yeah, they're bumbling.
Comic relief sort of way.
Bumbling. I didn't really get the significance of the bread episode.
Oh, so these were the Ukes, right? That were trying to draw an analogy between a loaf of bread and the world, and how when it got moldy, that was the miasma. You know, like depending on your interaction, that's actually a critical interaction point, because the final boss will ask you about it later.
You get quizzed.
Well, you can't. They can ask you about a number of different
things. Yeah, but that's one of the things that they can ask you about. So it's important to have that interaction under your belt and be familiar with it in your gameplay. So.
Was it supposed to be like a satirical episode, though? Like, are the Ukes supposed to be the absent-minded philosophers?
I don't know if you remember, Gertie sells them the loaf of bread, saying that it's a model of the world, and he basically uses the metaphorical, like, look, it gets moldy. It's that same description that Billy said, but so they buy into it because they're high-minded but impractical.
Okay, so
is what the Ukes are supposed to be.
The absent-minded philosophers.
Yes, and so they buy it, and it seems like they are smart enough to realize, it's a loaf of bread. Like, we're not dumb, but there is a real lesson to be had here. Anyway, even though it's probably not worth 5,000 gil that we spent on it, there is still something to be learned by this. And then they give it to you.
Yeah. Right.
I ate that bread when I was fighting the final boss.
Yeah, that was good bread.
It was. It heals like 3 hearts, which isn't that much.
Well, it's
all
moldy.
things considered. Yeah. So I guess did we talk about favorite levels in terms of gameplay, or
not really?
No, I think I was the only one who mentioned. Mine was the manor.
You like the manor?
Yes,
Moshet Manor.
I felt bad when the Tonberry ghosts were pointing to their boss, like that fucker killed me. That's that person's fault.
I didn't, because if you interact with Tonberries in any other Final Fantasy game, you are happy to murder those motherfuckers.
I know. I looked at it and I was like, so I don't want to get close to these things. Like, it's him or me. It's him or me.
You just get shanked.
Yeah, they just cut you.
They have mutilate in this game too. It's like a very slow attack that deals all but like half a heart of damage to you.
Of course. Tomberries suck. They need to die. They're weird fishmen.
Problem is, I think they moved too fast in this game. They needed to just move slower.
The regular Tomberries move at Tomberry pace. The chefs, I think, moved a little quicker.
And the ones that you find in the last level, they have the real knives.
Yeah, and that's actually something that I wanted to call out. This game is pretty interesting in its kind of its time frame and its time period when it came out. It came out post Final Fantasy X, and it's very clear that they reused character models and animations from earlier Final Fantasy games to make this one. The Tomberries that you see at the end of the game, those are the same Tomberry models from Final Fantasy IX. The Dragon Zombie, the Draco Zombie, that is just the Draco Zombie from Final Fantasy IX, exactly. With a few more animations thrown in. The Griffins, FF9 character model. The Giant Toads, the Giant Caterpillars, all of those, straight from that game, just high-res versions. The Marlboro is basically the Marlboro from 9. I'm not just saying design. It's the model, which is crazy to me that they were able to repurpose, like the beetles, the big beetles you find, those things too. All of them repurposed from a PS1 game. So that's kind of nuts. Also, I think the giant Garudas, the giant birds that you fight in the desert, those are from FF10.
Maybe.
Like,
I can't remember.
Almost entirely. It's the same animations, same.
But there's things
creature.
like ABATs or whatever you call them. They're like the flying eyeball things.
Yes, the Arimons.
Oh yeah, I forgot those. I was calling them something else, but I knew what I was talking about. They have also, what's another one that appears in other Final Fantasy games?
And the Abaddon, that's the giant flying bug thing. That is from one of the hardest sequences in FF9. You fight one of those things. So it was really weird seeing these character models that I've seen dozens and dozens of times and realizing that, oh wow, this game was subtly it's the recycling bin of Final Fantasy. It is where Final Fantasy models go when they were like, man, we have to make all these enemies. It's going to take so long. What if we just use the Flans from 9? They moved. They're cool.
The Flans were...
That was a good idea when we came up with it.
We'll just reuse them. They've got the same animations. Whatever. So...
Because, I mean, they couldn't possibly think no one would notice.
Cactuar are in the game.
Yeah.
Yeah, that Cactuar looks like a FF8 Cactuar.
Cactuars
and
in
again,
the desert.
That looks like the FF8 model.
Ass, too.
They move so fast.
They're so fast.
The Moogles are kind of different.
Yes, the Moogles are different. Some of the enemies, like the Quarrels and the Chimera, they existed in other FF games, but they got different models.
The Machette Manor lady, she's a Lamia or whatever.
A Lamia, yeah. And they didn't reuse a model there. They made them look a little bit more friendly. So basically, it seemed like anytime a character model matched the aesthetic they were going for Crystal Chronicles, they just used it. And if they wanted that creature, but it didn't match, they made some tweaks.
Yeah.
But
then, it was fine.
Yeah, historically, it's an interesting moment when Final Fantasy games were still simple enough that you could kind of port something from one system to another and it would look okay. Whereas now it takes like 7 years for them to make one game because the character models have to be so damn precise and so beautiful.
So let's talk about what this game concludes in.
More polygons. Go ahead.
So we have this ultimate goal, right? Well, I guess we have this sub goal, but then we learn of another option, right? Our goal is to just delay the miasma, just defer, deflect, whatever you want to say, but just
forever.
Yeah, just keep putting a Band-Aid on it over and over again. Yep. We end up getting wind of this ultimate element, right? Throughout the game, we have to change the element that our chalice emulates to travel through different streams of miasma. from certain sections of the world to the next, right? Earth, wind, fire, water, basically the 4 elements, and like the world is chopped up by these miasma streams. So you have to change the element of your chalice in order to get from one stream to the next. Eventually you can get like an ultimate element that lets you go through all of them. And the last level's miasma stream requires this element. Right? So you learn about all this stuff throughout the game through interactions with Gertie, through interactions with some NPCs, sprinkled around throughout all the cities that kind of hint at this, ability that some other caravans have had in the past to get to the last level. And eventually you come across it, you find it. Right? When you do that, you are basically, it is revealed to you that there may be a final solution to the miasma. You eventually do it by visiting a level called Mount Valenge, and you learn that, and like here it is, folks, you learn that a meteor struck the planet and destroyed the planet's ability to prevent miasma. It also like creates miasma, and then enter monsters, enter miasma, world is now segmented. That's what actually happened.
Yeah, there used to be crystals and everything was cool, but then a meteor hit the biggest crystal, and then a parasite started pumping out miasma and created... And monsters... Do we want to talk about... So
what you're saying is, this is the alternate universe where Sephiroth was able to cast Meteor.
Yes. This is what happens.
This is what the world would have been.
So, first I want to say this before I lose this thought. Do you think there's a metaphor here that your caravan, which is made of basically of young people from diverse backgrounds, from diverse cultures, they are the people who can think outside the box enough to actually be the ones who bring about a permanent solution?
I didn't think about it, but that does make a lot of sense. When on my first save of this game, I had because you're allowed 8 character slots. I had a male and female of every race. So I had the boy and the girl Clabet, boy and the girl Lilty, boy and the girl Selkie, boy and the girl Yuke, and that was my caravan. And that was the caravan that ended up solving the world's crisis. The most diverse and young and new generation of caravan.
And the game does not allow you to double up on jobs. So if you have more than one character, you're going to have characters from at least different professions, if not different races. You can get a town full of Lilties if you want. But that's not really the way the game wants you to play. By giving each race strengths and weaknesses, they don't expect you to, have 8 of the same type.
Right.
Diminishing returns.
I mean, the fact that you have 8 slots just encourages you to try a boy and a girl of each, since that's what you have the most, character models for. And
also, they give you blueprints for armors or weapons.
You need them to be different.
That are unique to races. So if you just have everyone being the same race, you're all cannibalizing those blueprints instead of spreading them out evenly. So there are a lot of incentives for you to make a diverse party.
Now that
Pete, what do you think about that? Is it too tidy?
I just don't know if it's supported by the rest of the game. As in, there's not that mention of sort of intellectual diversity throughout the entirety of the game that you're sort of describing. I think your reading fits. I think it makes sense in sort of the metaphorical ways we've been looking. But I'd like to see more evidence of it within the game itself, if you know what I mean.
So, I guess the moments where I'm getting where I'm reading that into, why I'm reading that, is because of all of those moments when you're going to the different towns and you're interacting with the other caravans, and
they're always the same race.
They're always the same race. They are.
That actually is a good point.
They are all following whatever their tradition is.
The Lilties are all in matching armor. They're always, walking in formation. The Selkies are always kind of running around, kind of loose and relaxed,
having a good time. So the Clavets will offer you food. They are mild mannered. They take great pride in their produce. The Selkies are kind of roving, slightly thievish, kind of playful.
No matter what race you are, whatever caravan you meet, they say, hey, you guys are kind of unique and different.
Yeah.
Yeah. And, the Lilties are very regimented. The Mars Pass, they are just chasing monsters because they want to kill monsters and be great warriors.
Mm-hmm.
And so each of them are so focused on embodying their culture and being totally immersed in it that they kind of have a hard time seeing beyond it. And your town is the only town that is diverse in that way.
Yeah. I definitely disregarded the other caravans, and now that you bring those up, I do think your argument makes a lot of sense. I would like to draw a connection here, though, between the intellectual diversity you're describing and also the idea of sort of building on the intellectual effort of the past. So sort of keeping past knowledge current, keeping it up to date, not keeping it up to date, but sort of not discrediting lessons of the past, right? So keeping what Gertie found and building off of it with this sort of intellectual diversity you're describing.
Yeah. And I think that also that intellectual diversity that comes from exposing yourself to all of the different cultures' ways of thinking. And going back to that moment where the Ukes are staring at the bread, like the part of this game that makes me feel like this world is worth saving is when you have those different interactions with those different cultures and see how diverse and unique it is and how much better it could be if other cities could experience it.
If that cultural exchange is reestablished.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
So, unfortunately, that reading sounds really nice, and I'm glad that we were able to come to it in some way. But then you fight a monster. You fight a meteor parasite, and they just beat you over the head with memories.
Oh my God.
So
Mio and Rem.
Yeah. So here's how the actual end game works. You get to Mount Valenge, you battle through the hardest level of the game, you get to the final boss. It's a 3-stage, well actually it's a 5-stage boss. First 3 stages are fighting this like meteor monster parasite. It's not that hard.
Sucks.
It's sort of like you kill some tentacles, you smack it a bunch with whatever your favorite weapon is, and you deal a third of its damage, goes to the next stage, gets a little bit harder. Not that big a deal, right?
Just kind of sucks.
Yeah.
It's not hard.
Once
it
you're
takes a while.
about to deal the final blow of damage to this monster, you're stopped by an entity. These are entities that you have never interacted with earlier in the game. Or like, I guess you kind of did.
The Black Knight hints at it.
But you're never told what it is. Like,
Yes,
you do
and
not
so
know
does
what it
Gertie.
is until like this moment in the game. Until the very end of the game, you don't know what it is. Now,
Yes.
do we think Mio and Rem both were present in the game earlier, or was it just one or the other?
Both were.
I think Rem was definitely present for the Black Knight
Mio
stuff.
was too.
And
Mio's
Mio, I
there.
think, was there with Gertie, right?
I think they're both there at different points for both stories.
All right,
So
that,
in the
that,
very
that makes
last,
sense.
in the very last scene of the Black Knight, he is swatting at a white light that is Mio, and then Mio gives a piece of narration that is in the same text and in the same voice as that figure you meet at the end of the game.
Right.
Yeah.
And then earlier on, the Black Knight is just kind of swinging away at nothing, and he's saying leave me alone, leave my memories alone. And that's where I think he's fighting Rem, or trying to fight Rem.
Right.
Though Mio eats memories too, so it's not like...
She
But
says
only
that she just
memories you
nibbles.
forget.
She just nibbles a little bit so she can survive. But Ram's trying to consume the world's memories.
Trying to keep people suffering so that he can keep consuming
Because
delicious...
the mournful memories taste the best.
This whole
Nothing was better than when Taida died.
this whole thing was just so tacked on.
It was
Yes.
so Kingdom Hearts. Is what
It was.
Yeah.
It was also... I was like, this is subtle. I like that memories is a stat. Reading the diary was really cool.
And then at the
I don't know if
end,
you
it was
did.
like, guess what, guys? We got to go through the door of remembrance. And
There are
open
gods.
it using the key of recollection. Like all
the
these
realm of memories.
proper nouns. And then it's like, wow, we've just entered right into Kingdom Hearts land. Holy shit. So the next 2 phases of the boss,
Where's Kyrie?
yeah, right? You get stopped,
Mio is Kyrie.
basically. You get stopped, right? You meet Mio. She explains what's going on. that there's
She's
this
a white light.
She's like a white light, this like memory deity. Rame is some other like memory deity type thing, but he's gone off.
He's
He's gone off track.
What's the three-headed dragon from Godzilla?
He's oh, dang it.
Ghidorah?
Yep.
Yeah.
King Ghidorah.
Ghidorah. He's Ghidorah.
Sort of. Yeah, sure, fine, whatever.
It's a giant fire chicken.
Great. Perfect. That's kind of what this final boss is too. This has 2 stages.
Well, first you get quizzed about your
Yeah,
memories.
you get quizzed. I actually
quiz.
don't know how this... I haven't played this final boss sequence enough to know what happens if you get them right or wrong.
So what happens is, if you get them right, you just advance.
Yeah.
Way to go. If you get them wrong at any point, you will have to fight 2 minions.
Those little spy things.
And the more you get wrong, the more minions you have to fight.
But is there really no difference later, whether you get them all right
Yes,
or wrong?
well, there is, because if you get too many wrong, you run out of memories and you get a game over screen.
Okay, yeah.
But the final boss fight, you don't get like a special bonus.
Right, yeah.
for
That's what I
having
was
done
thinking. You just have to progress enough.
You have
And
to not get them all wrong.
I wish you could get a benefit for getting them all right. I'm not sure if you do or don't.
You don't.
Does the guide say something
As far as
My
about it?
guidebook says you
don't? All right, well-
basically you don't have to fight those things, is what.
All right. So I wish there was some kind of benefit. And there
You don't get an ass kick.
Yeah, there kind of is, because once you start fighting, it's basically just deal damage to in this like new like Aether realm where there's these memory enemies that are your sub enemies, and then like a big final boss. You just smack him a
Sucks.
bunch until
Sucks.
yeah, you just smack
Yep,
him a bunch
it
until he's
sucks.
dead. And then the last phase of what actually kind of matters, right? It's you with your brilliant shining memories versus him, and now your memories are your weapons. Let's go.
Yes.
So
And they make you invincible, or they give you.
Spells.
it basically gives you an
Spells.
instant level 3 spell.
Yeah.
That's just
Yes.
like extra strong. So your memory floats down, it can fall onto the stage, and either you pick it up or the boss like consumes it or devours it. And you don't want the boss to consume or devour it. You want to take it, but I don't actually know how to take it. They just like wait a long time on the screen, and then they just pop and fall on the ground. Is there a way to trigger them early?
You cast Cure on it.
Oh, really?
You cast a spell on
Oh,
it.
okay. Well, then I guess I could have gotten him fast. I just kind of waited for them to break, but I had the best weapons in the game, so I could just smack him until he was dead.
Yeah, that's. It goes from. Remember all those things where I was like, it's kind of subtle. Like, there's this cultural
Yes.
thing going on. And then it's like,
all subtle
what
here.
if. Hey, remember that memory stat? And you might have thought it did nothing? No, it does everything. That was what it was all about.
Don't let the
Stupid.
past consume you, but don't lose sight of it either.
Oh man,
Yes.
it just
If you
got
look too
real
far-
Kingdom Hearts.
If you look too far into the past, you'll never want to leave it.
Your shining
if you look too far to the
memories.
future, you won't appreciate the present.
Your memories are burning so bright inside of you. Just hang on to them. Use them.
I think-
He can't touch you if your memories burn bright enough.
Did they literally say stop and smell the roses at one point? Like there's something very
Some
close
part in
to-
the game. Yeah.
Yeah. So let's pretend that final boss fight didn't happen.
Yeah, I'm totally down. with
I
that.
hated it. It was bad.
It was everything Final Fantasy is in a final boss. It was a final boss
That's-
rush of a Final Fantasy game.
that's
It
true.
so emulated its
Completely
form
accurate.
perfectly.
I've never played a Final Fantasy game except this one and a little
And you
bit
know.
more. And I know that's totally accurate.
Yeah, that is so accurate of Final Fantasy. And now, this game,
yeah, it had like 7 forms, and none of them made sense.
There's the
and
boss.
all of a sudden, there was a weird deity.
And there's the real boss.
There were 3 reveals.
Yeah.
It's like, here's a meteor parasite. Nope, psych, it's a giant fire chicken. Nope, psych, it's a giant indescribable thing.
Floating
So,
sword or something.
we keep joking that this game is like so Kingdom Hearts. What you actually don't know is that Kingdom Hearts actually just came out like a year before this game came out.
I know.
This
and
is actually just like they took Kingdom Hearts shit and was like, you know what? Kingdom Hearts printed money. Let's just put some Kingdom Hearts shit right at the end.
Was this,
The Heartless was the best idea.
if you were looking, Billy, can you look up whether this game's lead designer was the same lead designer from Kingdom Hearts? Because it is another third-person action game, and that wouldn't by the same company.
The
and
combat
so that wouldn't
mechanics are
surprise
pretty
me.
similar too.
They have some stuff in common, so it wouldn't surprise me. Because it just goes. It was so like when I read the diary, because I just stumbled upon the diary, I was really taken aback by how much craft went into their little like 3-paragraph descriptions of the levels. What my character took away from the level was not necessarily what I took away from the level, and it showed that my character had a voice, even though, you know, whoever your character is will always have the same voice. But the idea that it impacted my character significantly and they took some sort of revelation from it kind of fed into my reading that your character is growing and starting to see the beauty of the world and starting to see the world through these different lenses. And then they turn it into a stat that if you forgot what happened earlier in the game, you just get a game over screen. It just goes from like this subtle metaphor to the most literal possible use. Yep. Damn it. Damn it so much. Damn you, REM. Is REM just REM sleep? Is that what it's about?
I was actually looking it up to see how REM sleep is involved.
It's RAEM.
I know, but is that what they actually mean?
I don't think so.
So, look, I don't think this is what they were thinking, but the science doesn't really back up the idea that REM sleep's the most important part of forming memories. It is a popular hypothesis, though, so yes, that's like, pick the least subtle thing possible. That's the least subtle thing possible. So
yeah, I was half expecting when I saw REM, I was like, is Mio like a name for some sort of good sleep drug or something? Like, what is that, a goddess of sleep from Grecian times? It's got to be something unsubtle.
Side note, I can't find any common developers between the two games.
Okay, good. Keep them away.
I mean, they're both Square games.
Yes.
But like I can't find any like director or producer or level designer that is in common. I'm sure there may be a couple people on the team.
That's great.
But
I'm happy
it doesn't have like the same director or the same lead designer or something like that.
Yeah, because I think 8 and Kingdom Hearts shared some sort of lead design,
yeah.
And or writer, and it made sense that both of them were batshit fucking crazy and make no sense.
You mean perfect?
Whatever you say.
Look, you only need to play like 16 games to understand the plot of Kingdom Hearts. Like, that's not that
fine.
You only have to play 16 games, and then when you do, you realize that it was about love.
And there's also a handy infographic on the internet somewhere. Like, you're fine, boys.
I get all my information from infographics. So.
Anything else about Crystal Chronicles? We're about at our time, too.
We are.
Yeah, I think that is... We hit all the big things I wanted to hit.
I think so.
Verdict on this game.
I loved it.
This game, I think... And this is probably going to fall on like deaf ears for Pete because this is his first playthrough. But like, I played this game like right after it came out, like early 2000s. And it was great. And playing it now, I think it lost nothing. Like, it stands the test of time real well. This game holds up to time real well.
Which is staggering considering I thought this game was going to be dated as hell. It's got a Game Boy Advance connector cable.
Don't even worry about it. No problem.
4 of them. And
everyone has them.
Game Boy Advances.
You was just expected. Everyone has a link cable, guys.
Right?
4.
Everyone has a Game Boy Advance. Everyone has a link cable. It's just assumed.
This link cable worked with 2 games.
That we know of.
This guidebook has a little insignia on here that says, "Get connected." That's only on like 2 games because there was no use for this. It is the most useless Nintendo peripheral.
That's a bold claim, Gino.
I know. There's a lot of useless
Nintendo
ones.
peripheral.
The Wii Speak exists.
Oof.
I don't know if you know the Wii Speak.
I've used the GameCube version playing old Mario Party games. There's like a GameCube microphone.
No, the Wii Speak is it's a microphone that you can mic up your room so you could voice chat with other people over the Wii network.
Because that's what I use a Wii for.
It was compatible with like 2 games. Like, it was a microphone, but you just couldn't use it for most games. That's probably the most
What is this
used.
peripheral actually called?
What, the Game Boy Advance link cable? Or the Wii Speak?
Oh, no. I think I was looking up the wrong one.
Are you looking at other games? That
I was
use
trying to
it?
find other games that use it.
It's the Game Boy Advance link
To our
cable,
listeners, if any of you have
Yes.
Game Boy Advance link cables,
But this game shouldn't hold up so well. Like,
Okay.
graphically, it's not super impressive. I mean, it's stylized, and the music holds up, and I think the narration holds up, but I don't think that the story should be as pertinent, and I think that it's more an indictment of the types of stories that RPGs usually tell that this one is so refreshing. That
yeah, I can't
this game,
think of
why
like
is this game so novel?
Yeah, I can't think of a single RPG where like the story has really captured me.
And even, like, I can, but most of the time it is trying to tell a
I guess if you count
story
Bioshock.
on such a scale. It's usually trying to tell a story that's on such a scale that all of the tiny vignettes don't matter. And this game is nothing but the tiny vignettes for the most part. Until the end, in which case two gods that absorb memories show up, which, damn it, Final Fantasy, why'd you have to Final Fantasy so hard?
So I've got the
Just burn that
list.
shit to the ground. How long is it?
Not that many. I'd probably say.
How many hands do you need to use?
Oh
to
no,
count
it's probably
them?
like 50 games.
How many do you recognize?
Probably 8. Or sorry, 8 games that
Okay.
like matter. Like there's like an Animal Crossing game. Fine, cool. We've got like some Harvest Moon games. Harvest Moon was a pretty good series. Metroid Prime
Okay. That's
has
a real
one.
game.
Now I'm curious how many were just maps though.
No, like
All of them.
it unlocks new versions and it unlocks like a new like if you play Metroid Prime,
Oh,
you
yeah,
get the
and Metroid
fusion suit if you have a fusion cartridge in your Game Boy Advance.
So these were not. You did not use it to play the game.
Just to
or
unlock
control
it.
it in
Did
any
like
way.
you
It was-
you use it in Wind Waker for
okay.
the like the Tingle tuner or whatever it's called. That was actually necessary for
Is that
some
something
speedruns
I
of that game.
Do I want to be tingle tuned?
It basically just lets you get items that you shouldn't have in the games. You can bomb stuff that you shouldn't be able to bomb earlier, or like do other items, whatever. It's not that important, but it's used in Crystal Chronicles. It's used in Legend of Zelda: Four Swords Adventure. It's used in Wind Waker. It's used in a couple other games that we would recognize. But,
Okay. So it wasn't the most useless.
Still pretty fucking useless. though.
But
It's
I will
still
say,
the Wii
like
Speed
here's
or the
what
Rumble
I'll say.
Pack.
I'm looking at the whole list. And I'd say 90%, the only description is unlocks new content. Which obviously just means like fucking costumes or skins or something.
So basically, it is the amiibo of the game,
Kinda. Yeah.
except instead of being a tiny figurine that looks like KK Slider, it's a cable that connects my GBA, so I have to buy another fucking GBA game that connects to the game that in question.
Yeah.
That face that you're making
Wow.
says I'm right.
Yeah, I guess.
Just
Damn it, Nintendo.
evil
How'd you do this?
masterminds, man.
How do you keep doing this?
Just print money.
They just print money, guys.
They only ever have maps, the second screen.
Aren't they reissuing the Pokemon games again too?
It's like this year's the 20th anniversary of Pokemon,
Right.
so they're releasing a shit ton of Pokemon content.
Okay.
Poke content is going crazy this game. I'm ready to play Pokken. All right?
Oh, the fighting game?
The Pokemon fighting
Yeah.
game, it's basically Tekken of Pokemon. I'm so ready for that.
I still think
Are they all like gone? Are they all just really small?
No, I mean I'm sure I'm sure it's well made and like rendered properly.
because Steelix is 48 feet long. 46 feet long.
I don't is he in the game? Is he
I
in
don't know.
Pokken?
But he's huge.
No, like there's like Blaziken and Pikachu and stuff like they're in like you'll see like a couple of the staples, but I don't think the obscure Pokemon off the on the
I'm
side.
Just Gyarados is off the screen.
I don't know if I
I
call
don't know.
Blaziken a staple. I mean, good Pokemon.
Blaziken is a very popular like Pokemon figure, I think,
Really?
and would fit right into this model.
Well, wait, I mean, it's basically a person.
Yeah, you want all the fighting Pokemon,
Yeah.
just all of them, and then a Bulbasaur. Yeah, so this game holds up remarkably well. I don't understand why, and like I said, I think that it's mostly because games like this generally don't deal in stories on this small of a scale, and just
Yeah.
by focusing on something less than world destruction, it gets a lot of mileage out of it. I think The only game that I can remember that does something similar is Lost Odyssey, which we should really play at some point. It has a bunch of vignettes that are memories. The story is set up where the main character is an immortal who's lived for 1,000 years, and you find moments or things that trigger memories of his 1,000-year lifespan. And each of those vignettes is more interesting than the entire main storyline of that game. Every single one of the vignettes is better than anything that happens in the main story of that game.
Anyway, Crystal Chronicles.
Just like Crystal Chronicles.
Yeah. Good game.
Yeah, it's
I'm
fine.
happy with Crystal Chronicles. Are we done?
Yes. Yeah, we have to pick next game.
Gino,
Is it me?
you're up.
I think it's me.
It is.
Mass Effect.
Wait, I picked, right?
Yeah, you picked
Yes.
Crystal.
Oh,
I
yeah,
picked.
yeah, shit. Oh, Mass Effect. I haven't played this game yet. This is my
You're in for a treat.
This is my first. This is gonna be my first interaction with the whole Mass Effect series.
How is that possible?
Mine
I
too.
just never got around to it, you know.
What?
Yeah.
Neither of you have played Mass Effect before?
No.
What?
Yeah.
It's fine.
What? What?
See you next time, guys.
Okay, great. I'm doing you both a service. This is why we have this podcast.
Okay. So Mass Effect.
Sometimes we play Valda's story. Sometimes we play Mass Effect.
Sometimes we play stupid games with Sundare planes.
Yes, sometimes.
Shots.
And sometimes we play awesome games with
Shots
Sundare planes.
fired.
I haven't played the stupid one yet.
that's my pick for 2 weeks from now.
Okay, so next time we're going to be playing Mass Effect 1, the first Mass
Oh.
Effect. I'm probably going to be playing all the Mass
I
Effects,
can't
but you
wait.
both just have to play
Okay.
Sounds good.
one. So till next time, any last words? Billy,
I'm looking forward to Giant Bomb Community Endurance Run. I'm looking forward.
April 15th to 17th, y'all.
We're going to be
Get
playing
ready.
this game, Crystal Chronicles, 4-player speed run. It's going to be great. Check it out. See you guys next week. Thanks for tuning in, as always.
Pete,
I will again second Billy's enthusiasm. Don't need to rehash it because he did. But once again, everybody, thanks for tuning in. Give us some feedback. Send us some comments. We always like to hear from you guys.
and you can send comments to @DeepListensPod on Twitter, DeepListensPodcast@gmail.com, or deeplistens.libsyn.com, where we've got a comment section, y'all. So till next time, thank you for listening. I'm going to be a Selkie, I think, in the 4-player playthrough. Or you. Probably a Selkie. Till next time, peace!